This is episode number 17 of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast with our guest, Kyle Mauch. Welcome to the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. My name is Jeff Thornton, alongside my co-host, Michael Anders. Each week, we bring you an inspiring person or message related to our 4 pillars of success: manifestation, business, fitness, and nutrition. Thank you for allowing us to join you on your journey. Now let's get started.
Hey, what's good, guys? Welcome to Feed Me, Fuel Me, episode number 17. We are already here with our special guest today, Kyle Mauch. He's got a very interesting story, and him and I connected through a networking group that we both belong to. And I'd want to go ahead and preface this show with, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not actively networking, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So here we are, Mike Anders, Jeff Thornton, and our special guest Kyle at Casa de Jefe, episode 17, Feed Me, Fuel Me. We'll just go ahead and dive in. Kyle, go ahead and just kind of tell us your story of origin, where you're from, a little bit about your baseball career, and what you're doing now.
Cool, man. No, I'm originally from Klamath Falls, Oregon, small town in southern Oregon. I grew up in a baseball family. Dream as a kid was playing professional baseball, and my dad played, and my brothers played college baseball, and it's kind of one of those things where it's bred into you. Ended up going to a few different colleges, bounced around, got some experiences, played some Division I baseball.
Where'd you finish at?
Finished at Centenary College of Louisiana.
Okay. Where is that?
Shreveport. So Shreveport was where I decided that I was going to get into business.
Okay.
And that was also where I discovered networking. So with you talking about networking, that I was a senior in college and reached out to this guy named Lewis Howes. And at the time, he owned sportsnetworker.com, and which was a website that taught people how to get into the sports industry, which is this old man's game, you know? So how do you get in if you're this young kid coming fresh out of college and get a legitimate gig without having to go through the internship like
right.
realm? Lewis says, go to networking events. Because we got them in LA, we got them in Dallas, we got them in Miami, we got them in New York. Go to these things. Because if you have to take a flight, go to them. And so I reach out to him through an email and say, man, I'm a college baseball player. I don't have time to be able to get on a flight. I don't have money to get on a flight. There's nothing like this. There's no networking events, let alone sports networking events in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Barksdale Air Force Base. Yep.
It is, yeah. I've been to some sick air shows there too.
Sure.
No, and it's a cool town, but there wasn't anything like that. And Lewis goes, he responded within 24 hours and says, make your own. And I'm like, ooh, okay, like make my own event. I email him back, and I remember telling him too, as like, man, I'm a college kid. I don't think that people are going to come to my events. I'm not even in the sports industry. And he responds with a short email too. It's about a paragraph, and says, people don't know, and they don't need to know that you're a college kid. All they need to know is that you're bringing together people that want to meet each other. Whether they want to meet you or not, they want to meet each other. The most powerful thing to be is the connector. So I started the sports networking event. And at the time, I had this little clothing company gig that it wasn't a company by any means. Okay, I found this website called screen.com where you could put on art, and if it sold, then they'd put money in your bank account. It was about $5 every time.
Okay.
So that was like my little gig that was paying for some beer money. I was making about $100 a month off of it. And so then I started getting into this networking thing, started my first networking event. And this first networking event had about 4 people show up. And I'm thinking there's 20 RSVPs or so on LinkedIn. I started this LinkedIn page and kind of learned what Lewis was doing to start his events originally, and 4 people showed up from that first event, and I was disappointed. You know,
how did they perceive it?
That's what I was worried about. I apologized when we were in the middle of it to the people, because I had this big table at Buffalo Wild Wings. Buffalo Wild Wings sponsored appetizers for us. We had all these like wings and other stuff on the table that no way 4 people could eat. It was planning for 20. And this guy tells me, he goes, man, don't apologize. He goes, what matters here is the 4 people that are here are quality people. They're all people that I got to have a serious conversation with, and I never would have met if I didn't come today. Right. And somebody else overheard us, said the same thing. It turns out that one was the assistant athletic director at Louisiana Tech. And the guy I was talking to was the biggest sports agent in Louisiana.
You just never know.
You never know. And the other person there was a sports editor for the Shreveport Times. So it was 4 people that had never met, that now we're getting to create a real relationship, not just networking. No business cards were handed out that day. There are phone numbers shared between phones, and it was valuable. Did it again the next month and try to start doing it every month. The next month there was 4 people again, 1 different person. Next month after that, 10. Then it started to grow and got to the point where there was about 15 people, and that was really the max. So I learned this thing, networking. And everybody that showed up to these was crazy valuable, and I realized that you didn't have to be somebody big to create people or create opportunities for other people, which ended up being insanely valuable. So went from that, had that kind of rolling, went into or decided to leave baseball and leave college after that, and that was stemming from an injury that I had when I was in middle school. Found out that I had a broken back. I had spondylolisthesis and never let it heal. And doctors gave me 3 options. 1, get surgery, 2 bolts in, probably never be able to play sports again, never be able to play baseball because of the torque. 2 was take 18 months off, back brace, hope that the bones fuse back together. 50-50 chance, he said. If they didn't, I just missed 2 of my biggest recruiting years of my high school career to get into college. If they did, awesome, then I can finish out strong. Or manage the pain, learn how to do core workouts and whatnot, and keep that core strong so that your back never loses or never gets broken even more, basically, is what he was saying. He said by 50, I'd be in a wheelchair without a doubt. And he said by the time I'm 30, I'll be walking hunched over with pain. And I'm 28 now, no pain at all. It's completely fine as far as I know. But I decided to leave baseball because of managing that for 4 years.
Right.
So I had these 2 things in my pocket now when I decided on this decision. That was still my dream. That was still my passion, was baseball. But I had this T-shirt thing going. It's making money. I wasn't really committed to it at all. It was just a side thing. Had this networking thing going because I wanted to work in sports. If baseball didn't work out, I wanted to be a sports marketer or an agent possibly. And then I go into summer ball after my senior year. So I decided this is going to be my last shot at it. And same thing, just struggling with this pain and going through this injury and doing everything I shouldn't have for the last 4 years. 4 cortisone shots in a season, and just everything that I shouldn't have been doing, But trainers and everything just kept at it, kept letting me do the things. They weren't encouraging it.
Sure.
I was asking for it, and they were doing it. So halfway through that summer ball season, I'm nearing the point where I'm just going to have to quit and hang it up, have a really good game, and meet the scout and talk to him about my situation. He said, I want you to come out in 18 months spring training. And this is with the Padres organization.
Okay.
And so he goes, take that time, try to get your back better if it can. And if you pass physical and we come back, then awesome, I want to see what we can do. And so I never got drafted. But during that time is when I really discovered my love for business and discovered what my purpose was. Mm-hmm. And about 10 months into it, I'm working for my brother at this point, which owns a company called OnCarrot.com. It's a real estate lead generation system. And something I'd never been a part of, never grew a passion for real estate, and eventually that was what kind of drove me to this point of leaving. But about 10 months in, I hit this state of depression. And I didn't know it was depression then, I just thought that I was just bummed, couldn't sleep, couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. About 4 nights of literally no sleep, hadn't slept for 4 nights in a row. And middle of the night, I'm just sitting there thinking, and it just clicked, I hit this point as a major crossroad where I realized that what I'm bummed about and what's keeping me up at night is that I can't play a game. That's what it was I couldn't play a game. And there's so many bigger issues in the world that you can be depressed about and bummed about that people aren't. People that don't have limbs, people that were born blind, that have never been able to see, people that can't smell, can't hear, live in a tough neighborhood, came from nothing, there's so many issues that you can keep piling up that were bigger than not being able to play a game. And I wasn't physically handicapped. I wasn't playing a game because I decided to stop playing a game. But I was dwelling on myself because I felt like it was taken away from me, even though it wasn't. figure out something so that if I died that day, that my funeral wasn't just talking about he's a good guy and a good baseball player.
Sure.
I wanted to leave this world better for having had me in it than if it didn't have me in it.
Sure.
I didn't want to leave having people say that I was a good guy and he played baseball.
Right.
You know? So that's when I realized that I wanted to help the world in some way. So I came up with the idea for these shirts and talked to my brother, and we realized that, man, making $100 a month off something I'm getting $5 every shirt and not even spending money on marketing or even pushing it out there in any way. That's a business.
Right.
And so we turned that into, let's use these shirts to raise money for athletes or for athletes' causes. So I started doing that, didn't really have the athlete involved in any way, and ended up going back and getting invited to spring training, passed my physical, and played a month of spring training. And that was my professional baseball career. That month I started talking to athletes about what causes they work with, what causes they've donated money to, and found that literally nobody that I talked to had ever donated a dime on purpose.
Wow, yeah.
Like they'll do their write-offs and it'll go to a cause that you see on a flyer that's put there during spring training, a bunch of causes, flyers, and mailing addresses to send your write-offs to. But they never actually pursued a cause and wanted to be involved with these causes. But athletes have the most influential platform out of any profession in the world to be able to actually make a difference in the world.
Sure.
And I say that because they connect on a mass with so much more youth that have their minds actually being molded and actually being able to be persuaded into be better people and do better things. Then more kids want to be athletes than they want to be presidents, than they want to be doctors and they want to be lawyers. More kids want to be athletes.
Sure.
Because these guys are 35 years old playing the same game that 8-year-old Joey's playing.
Sure.
You can relate on that level, So that's where I realized there's this platform that's being unused that could truly change the way that the world is. So I wanted to create a platform for that. So the start of that was a company called Athletes Brand. And at the end of that month, I left baseball full-heartedly knowing that I'd pursued everything that I wanted to pursue in that sport.
Right.
And full-heartedly knowing that that sport led me to what my true purpose is and to something that I could be 100% passionate about in the same way that I was in baseball. And I was afraid that if I stayed in baseball, then I would become passionate about baseball in that same way again and lose that opportunity to have a backup plan, to have something else fulfill that next chapter of my life.
Right.
Wow. So that's what's led me to where I'm at right now.
Sure. I think it's interesting that you turned a potential opportunity to extend your baseball career into yet another important networking opportunity in that month of spring ball, because you have direct access to athletes, which are, the primary mechanism that drives Athletes Brand. And so that's extremely insightful in the moment, because you're in that limbo as to whether or not you're going to keep going with baseball or pursue Athletes Brand, and for a lot of people, having that decision weighing on you can be a very challenging scenario. So that's huge. And as now that we're at this point in your life, I want to kind of rewind to when we finally met in person over dinner, and we were having a discussion about that same story that you just told. And you kind of finished it off with your discovery that your passion wasn't your purpose. And that's what I really want to talk about today, is because a lot of, you hear it's so cliche to say now, follow your passion, do something you love, and you'll never work another day in your life. And in our conversation, I realized that there's one more step after that.
100%.
And that's making sure that you can use that passion to keep you motivated as you pursue your purpose.
Yeah.
And your passion and your purpose, while I would say that they can be both equally motivating, aren't always the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I try to clear this up every time I talk about it, because originally I felt, athletes had told me that, because they're being athletes, is that them not having a purpose, and it's misconceived, because I left baseball to follow my purpose because baseball, and when I say that you're just playing a game, I didn't think I was ever going to make it to the point to where my influence could be my purpose.
Sure.
You know, so athletes can fulfill that purpose by playing baseball and being a Hall of Fame or whatnot, by giving back to the community and using that platform to do something big, whether it's helping their family or whether it's helping others or helping the environment, you know, so they can do that. But when you're talking about there being that extra step of finding your purpose and that being the ultimate goal, I like to say that your passion is the journey and your purpose is the destination. Your passion is what you can full-heartedly love and kind of gives you that path that will lead you to what your purpose is. And the big difference between the two is that your purpose is what you can do every day for the rest of your life that plays its part in the world to make the world better for having you in it. But there's two things that you have to have about that. First of all, you have to be good at your purpose.
Sure.
And you have to be passionate about it, you know? And you can be passionate about something. Like, I love music, you know? It'd be cool to be a country singer or something, you know?
Right.
Like, you travel the world and do all these things, but I can't sing, you know?
Yeah, right.
So that can't be my purpose. My purpose can't be that platform as a musician to go write lyrics and make the world better. But what I was good at was I was good at sports. And I thought that was my purpose, but that's what I was good at. So I followed that, and that was my dream. And I followed it as long as I could until finally I realized that what my purpose was. It led me there.
Sure.
You know? And that's the tough part for a lot of people is they think that you can just discover your purpose. Like there's this written plan to here's how you find your purpose in life. But the only written plan is to find what you're good at, find what you can be passionate about, and follow that as long as you can. You know, you're going to know when there's that point where you discover what your purpose is, because you can see, and when you break it down, is this making a difference in the world? Is what you're doing making the world better? It could be a janitor, you know?
Right.
And I say that over and over because people think that, there's these low paying jobs that I don't want to be, you know, I'm trying to work towards something else. But this world doesn't tick if we don't have people cleaning our classrooms, you know. This world doesn't tick if we don't have people, you know, doing accounting.
Sure.
Like there's all these different jobs that we need. But if you're not passionate about it, if you don't like it, then there is something that you still need to discover. I know a lot of people that love being an accountant because they love numbers. If you love numbers and you love doing math, then your purpose is something doing in math, you know? And we need those people. There's a lot of those people out there. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people get lost in the extravagance of what we're talking about and thinking that their passion and their purpose need to be equally monumental to make a difference. And I always go back to little league coaches. You know, most of them are volunteer. I would say the 99% of them are volunteer.
Yeah.
You know, they're not Nick Saban. You know, they're not the Lou Holtz of the world. They're doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
That's passion. And their purpose is mentoring these young kids and, you know, giving them a vehicle to stay out of trouble, be productive, and, you know, increase their EQ, their social acumen, you know, and teach them what it is to be part of a team and whatnot. So everything is scalable in this world, you know, and you can find equal satisfaction at every level, you know, whether, you know, your passion and purpose leads you to millions of dollars, or, you know, you're just a little league coach, you know, on Saturday mornings. You're fulfilling the same purpose at different levels, you know. And if you talk to either one of those coaches, I guarantee you, you know, they're not going to talk about fulfillment from money or lack thereof. All their fulfillment comes from watching those players that they mentor go on and accomplish great things. Yeah. So their fulfillment ultimately comes from the production of those that they've mentored. It doesn't have shit to do with money.
You nailed it. 100%, man. 100% agree with that. And I think once you discover your purpose is you realize that the money is not as important as you thought it was. Because your purpose, if you're in your purpose, you discover that it's something that you're passionate about, something that you're good at. If you're passionate and good at something, like seriously, like really passionate and really good at what it is that you're doing, there's going to be a way to make money off of that. Because you're not the only one in the world that's passionate about that.
Right.
You know, there's going to be a way to make money off of that, and you're going to be able to make as much money as you personally want. You know, like with what I'm doing, am I making a ton of money right now? No, not at all. Mm-hmm. But I'm 100% happy with where I'm at, and I have everything I need right now. Do I want more money? Definitely. And I'm going to keep following what my purpose is, you know, and keep doing these different things that I love to do that are still fulfilling that same purpose, which is helping people make a difference. And one thing going on that is I think one day I'll discover a new purpose. Mm-hmm. You know, right now my purpose is using Athlete's brand and using speaking to connect with people. Speaking, I'm trying to help them discover their purpose because I knew it made such a difference in my life. And Athlete's brand, I'm trying to help make the world a better place in some way. And that way is helping athletes use that platform. Does that mean that this is going to be what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? It could be. Mm-hmm. You know, I could full-heartedly hold on to this for the rest of my life. But I feel like as long as I keep having new experiences and keep following this path, one day it's probably going to get to the point to where there's going to be somebody better at running an Athlete's brand than me, and I'm going to bring them in. And I might discover that I actually want to be physically doing things. You know, I might actually want to, I might discover this really big connection with kids in the Dominican Republic and want to make that my new purpose, that one specific thing. You know, it could be something, but I don't think that people need to get this mindset to where once you discover your purpose, you're in it. Like that's what you are for the rest of your life. And don't shy away if you are somebody that feels like you full-heartedly discovered your purpose and you're listening to this thinking, yeah, like just nodding, agreeing with everything, you know, I mean, like this is me. Don't rule out the fact that your purpose can completely change at some point, and follow it if you do feel like it does change.
Wow. And do you feel like going alongside with purpose, do you think when people sort of discover that purpose, they know in the back of their head, like, this is what I want to do, but there's that barrier that holds them back from taking that initial leap because they look at it, they look at their financial situation in that current moment and say, well, like, that's my purpose, but I mean, I don't know how I can make money off of it, so I'll just continue doing what I do on the day-to-day. And this will be on the side. I'll continue this journey later, but it's not getting me money at the time. It'll come along. How do you initially get over that barrier, that mental, that mental stoppage is where you want to pursue something bigger, but you're fearful or you're in a scarcity mindset rather than like that abundant mindset of actually helping more people, and you just think about that where you are currently.
Scary, man. It is. My experience going through that was I was working for my brother still. So this was after I left baseball. I was trying to make money on my own to have a living. And so I'm working with my brother's company, doing that full time. And then in my part time, I'm working with the Athlete's brand. Mm-hmm. And we did this for over a year. And finally, me and my brother have this talk. And I knew what my passion was at that point. Like I became more passionate about this Athlete's brand thing than I was at baseball at that point. And I knew that was my thing. I was going to stick to it. I was staying up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning working on it, and then getting up at 6 the next day to work for Carrot again, doing that full-time job. And my brother, like, we were talking about it, and he goes, man, you're not being fully beneficial to either of the things that you're doing. He goes, you've been doing Athlete's brand now for over a year, and it hasn't grown at all. And what you're doing with Carrot, you're not really making much of an impact on us anymore. He goes, there's so much more that you could be doing. And he said, I'm willing to pay you 6 figures to do this if you go full-time in this and you leave Athlete's brand. He goes, but I know how much you love Athlete's brand, so you need to make a decision. He goes, you need to figure out how much money you need, and we need to set a deadline on when you're going to get that money by. And so I got in a position where I had somebody there with me to tell me I need to throw my ass under the gun and put myself in a position where I have to have this. Otherwise, I'm going to have no money or no job. And so it was April 1st, and this was on January 21st or something like that. And this was on April 1st was that deadline that I needed to have $50,000 to be able to start Athlete's brand and run it full time. Otherwise, I was going to have to quit Carrot and go full time in Athlete's brand, or I was going to have to quit my dream and go full time in Carrot and follow this thing that's giving me money. And that's the scary thing, is putting yourself in a position to where your safety net's gone. Like, think about that. In a position where you've got this good job, it's paying all your bills, it's helping you have cooler things in life, you know, but that safety net is gone because you're trying to chase what you believe your purpose is. Mm-hmm. That's so scary. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back from ever following what their purpose is. It eats them up until they're 50 years old and they go through a midlife crisis and realize that they're going to sell everything and go full time in this idea of theirs, travel the world, whatever it is, you know. Mm-hmm. And it takes them so long in life to finally dive in. And I lucked out by having somebody that had been there before. And I think that's something really valuable to listen to in this podcast, listen to from you guys, you know, is take that leap. So what I did was, a weird thing happened the very next day. I got this thing in my spam folder and in my email. And it was this email saying, quit your day job and win $50,000 and go full-time in your dream job. And it was pretty quick thing. I checked my spam folder about once a month at that point. Now I check it every day. But I just so happened to check it that day, and he said he wanted to have an interview with me tomorrow. What time am I available? Please respond, yada, yada. So I showed it to my brother, and he was like, man, is this spam? Should I even respond? And he goes, respond. What's it going to hurt? So I respond, do this Skype interview with the guy. 5 days later, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I got to bring my brother out. We're shooting a commercial for GoDaddy for their Super Bowl ad. And found out that it was all super secret, get in the passenger seat of Danica Patrick's car, do 4 laps, having to pitch my business around Charlotte Motor Speedway to Danica Patrick from the passenger seat of her car. And this all happened within 7 days of that conversation with my brother about, I have to have this 50 grand to start my business, or I have to quit that dream, which is what I left baseball for, which is what I left my dream for, but I still hadn't fully committed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and it just so happened that this contest ended at the end of March. So it was a month-long thing going through March, which was April 1st was our deadline. It was just weird how all these stars aligned, and it was this thing that was like, man, this is what you need to do. I didn't win the contest. I didn't win the $50,000. But that month, I went full-time into promoting myself through that and trying to get these votes because there's a fan vote. Mm-hmm. So after the Super Bowl, it's up to the fans to vote on who won. And this awesome dude, Jamie, ended up winning. He had a barbecue contest. He's a world hot wing eating champion. He had a massive platform on YouTube and just crushed it. And so I didn't win, but what I did was I had a month of experience now to where I knew full-heartedly that I could find a way to figure this out. So, and I had money stored up from savings from working for my brother, you know, and so I had kind of a safety net of money under there, but that was after investing about 2 years and saving money. And so I went full-time, quit Carrot at the end of that campaign, never went back, scraped by, you know, for the next year, just trying to figure out how to pay the bills and stuff. Got to the point to where I was down to about $100 in my account. And because I still had that safety net, I still had that money sitting there, and
still not committed.
Yeah, still I was doing it full time, but I wasn't in a position of win or die, you know. And that $100, and I made it back that next month, but then I just kept hitting the spots where it's like, I need to figure this out, and I started focusing on sales instead of growing the company. Two very different things. I realized I thought that sales came with growing the company and great ideas and marketing. No, I needed to sell shit, and I needed to make money so that I could start paying bills and stop living. At that time, I was living in a studio apartment with a buddy that was going to college still, and we're sharing a bathroom with 2 foreign exchange students in the room next to us, literally sleeping on a deflated, blow-up mattress 4 feet away from a dude with a mini fridge, and our sink and we're brushing our teeth in the same room. You know, it's like this filthy like situation, and I wanted to get out. I wanted to start creating my own thing, and that's when I had my ass against the wall. You know, I had nowhere to go but up at that point. So I figured out a way to make it work. And I think that that's the toughest part for people, is to fully trust that what you're doing is going to work out. And I had a conversation with a buddy about this the other day. I don't want to talk too much, but I had a conversation about this with a buddy the other day. And it sounds so corny to say, so I never say it when I'm doing speeches and stuff, but if you really believe something's going to happen, like if you truly believe it's going to happen, it's weird how it always happens.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So weird. You guys have any like stories about
manifesting, man?
Yeah.
Dude, it's just like, let me think of an example. Well, initially when I was playing college football, I just think back to that day where I was in a situation to where I felt like, you're young. I could start. I was a starter of this thing, but I wasn't getting the shots I felt I was necessarily, that I deserved, so to speak. So for me, it was that initial jump of like, man, either I'm going to sit here on the sideline for a whole nother year watching people play, or I'm going to get into a game, and I'm going to get into a game to where I'm running it, So I made that jump of spring ball. I just said, you know what, F it, man. I stopped playing football, left my year of eligibility on the table, and I started bodybuilding. Because at the time, my story is I went from like 260-pound dude after knee surgery. During football, I dropped to 185 playing strong safety, things like that. And so I said, okay, do that process. I understood, like, I love working out more than I actually love playing the game of football. And what fueled me was like, hell, I get to go to the gym, I get to go run, I get to do this. Why not turn that passion, so to speak, into something where I can challenge myself in a different area? So the best way I found it was going into bodybuilding. And I didn't know how to get there. I was like, how the heck? I came out thinking, like, I got to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger to be a bodybuilder, what's it take to get there? But then I discovered, man, through happenstance, that week I got done with ball, a guy came up to me at the gym. He's like, you know what? I think you'd be a good natural bodybuilder. I want to train you. That week I quit football, and I was like, what in the world? Like, how is this happening? He said, in 6 months, you're going to do a show. Drop dead date. Like, we're going to bulk you for 3 months, and the last 3 months, we're going to cut you. You're going to get ripped. I was like, okay, sounds good like a plan to me. But like you said, you had that deadline. And I think the deadline is what was important of saying, man, you don't know how to get there, but everybody has this dream. And everybody's heard that quote, a goal is just a dream with a deadline. And that's where the important part, because we all have dreams of what we want to be. But once you actually assign that deadline to it, that drop dead date, things just start happening.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that was the one thing that sort of kicked me off, is where I found out I could do things that I want to do for myself without continuing just to fall down the path of being that athlete. Because you lose it's an identity crisis. You've been playing ball for this long, and you just don't know what the next step is after that. You're just like, I'm just finish my eligibility, and whatever happens, we'll go to the day-to-day. But yeah, that's when I just sort of discovered where I could do things myself, and just learning how things just come along that path once you make that decision.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you take a really introspective look at your life and connect the dots, manifestation is a real thing. And I'm a huge believer in the laws of attraction and the powers of the universe. And if you've ever seen the movie or read the book, The Secret, like, that speaks to me on so many levels.
Me too.
It's a good one.
And, when you commit to an idea, not the process, but an idea, and just take that first step in committing, what I've noticed is that, and I'm deeply in tune with, is that the path becomes illuminated for you. Like that's not the hard part, right? Once you make the decision, the hard part's over. You just need to start walking the path.
Yeah.
And as we're sitting here on a podcast right now, I can remember sitting with my very first intern at the gym, Caleb, who was a guest on the show last week, and he introduced me to the Barbell Shrug podcast. And I said, I want to meet these guys. And as events unfold, and I said to myself, I furthered the goal. I said, I want to be on the show. And he looks at me like, really? Like, they just interviewed Lewis Howes, Rich Froning just won the CrossFit Games 4 times in a row, blah 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 blah. Like these people have celebrity status. You're just a fucking CrossFit coach, And I'm like, I want to be on that show. So as time goes on, I get the opportunity to take on the responsibilities as a Rush Club head judge, and it's like the fight club of CrossFit. Weight class based, 1-on-1, awesome show. And as we get ready for an event, it turns out that Mike Bledsoe and the boys all come out to do a podcast with Lindy Barber at Rush Club. So at the weigh-ins, I meet Mike Bledsoe. We make this veteran connection. He's a Navy vet. I'm a Marine. And we just really kicked it off on, fitness, veterans, business, all these things. And they come to the gym. We train. We go have breakfast, continue to do a little bit of networking, get to know each other, and really establish a solid relationship. Fast forward to October of 2015, they start unrolling their barbell mastermind, and they invite me to that. And so I made that happen. And then in that moment, through that process, they realized how committed I was to my craft and my business. And they're based on a lot of the stuff that I applied from the mastermind, they were like, dude, we got to have you on the show. And then they invited me onto the show. So like so that was 2014. So that was like 18 months.
Wow. From
manifestation to doing the show,
It's proof.
But
man.
like, I didn't plan any of that process. I was just doing the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put your head down and just do the work, and you'll get to the goal. I think a lot of people, the deadline helps for sure.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, there's too many external factors to really slap a deadline on that, I would say. But, I just put I said, I want to be on that show. And then I adopted this say yes mentality where if it was in line with where I ultimately want to go with life and business and stuff like that, I will not turn it down, regardless of how inconvenient it may be at the time. And in adopting that mindset, everything just kind of fell into place. But I don't believe in any coincidence when it comes to manifestation. It's like, oh my God, no, I can't believe I did that. And it's like, and then you look back at everything that happened leading up to it, and it's like, nope, that was on purpose.
Yeah.
It's incredible how that works.
That say yes mentality too, it comes when you know what you're trying to achieve. So what your purpose is, what you're trying to achieve. You have to know what you're trying to achieve in order to follow that path to get there, and in order to say yes to the certain situations. Like this podcast, this plays into what I'm trying to achieve. I had a ton of stuff to do today, but I made time for it because I know this is going to help me with what my end goal is, more than what some of the other tasks that I had to do today are.
Right.
And that's helping people make a difference. That's what you guys are doing with this podcast. That's what you do with your job. You make them healthier, make them smarter, make them more fit, the whole manifestation though is you have to believe it. Like you have to believe it, and exactly what you said, you have to keep working to get there. You can't just believe something and then go eat nachos and watch Family Guy. And wait for it to happen. You have to keep trying to get there, whether you know when it's going to happen or not. And the same thing happens to me over and over. Like I've gotten to the point now to where it's like when people say, "Oh, do you know Dale Earnhardt Jr.?" I'm like, no, I haven't met him yet. I haven't met him yet.
Right.
Like I feel like if anybody that I want to meet, then eventually I'll meet him. I'm at that point now, and it took proving that right like multiple times before I truly started to believe it. Now I full-heartedly believe it. Like I wrote out this bucket list, and it's all things that I'm going to do in my life. It's not things that I want to do before I die. It's things I'm going to do before I die. And they're realistic things. They're not things like I'm going to learn how to fly before I die, without, it's not stupid things that aren't possible right now. It's things like, I want an IMDb credit, an IMDb credit means that you had a role in a movie.
Right.
And I think it'd just be cool to be able to tell your grandkids about one day that you're in this movie.
Right.
And so that's something on there that I know I want to do. And then I go to the softball game a couple of weeks ago and playing, and one of the guys on the celebrity team was an actor, and he's in all this stuff like Sons of Anarchy and Book of Eli and all this stuff. He's got some killer. He's a big time actor.
Yeah.
And we just happenstance connect on a cause campaign that I did the month before with Paul Konerko, and he goes, or he hears that I'm from Scottsdale, and he comes by and he goes, "Hey, yeah, I heard you're from Scottsdale. You know PK?" I was like, "Paul Konerko?" He goes, "Yeah." Like, yeah, I literally just had a drink with him last week. Just got back from Chicago, spending time with him. And he goes, no way. That's been my favorite player, my favorite athlete since I was a kid. He goes, I'm from Chicago. I used to go to all the games. He goes, man, that would be my dream. Out of anybody I've ever want to meet, it'd be Paul Konerko. It's like, really? Yeah, that's crazy. Like, next time you're in Scottsdale, like, I'll reach out to Paul and see if I can make that happen. And he goes, man, I always wanted to be a baseball player growing up. And I was like, dude, that's weird. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, but I ended up being a baseball player. And we kind of laughed about it. It's completely opposite situations. And I was like, man, I'll try to set up Paul Konerko. And he goes, dude, consider the acting thing done. He goes, you're going to be in my next movie that I do. Wow. Are you serious? And I like told him, I was like, it's literally on my bucket list. Like, I want to be in a movie. And
right.
I was like, that just happened, and that wasn't even planned.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well,
so
it goes back to what you said earlier, and your dialogue back and forth with Lewis Howes. He's like, there's nothing more important in this life than being a connector, and in facilitating his connection with PK.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's very selfless. I'm positive that you weren't having that interaction thinking what can I get out of this relationship? Right? It's like, I know Paul.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then now he's genuinely interested in what you want and helping facilitate what's next on your list. So being a connector, it doesn't matter if we're talking celebrity status or just doing a small favor or introducing somebody to their new financial advisor. Like just helping facilitate somebody's success or the next item on their list, whatever it is huge for people.
Yeah,
and people think that it's such a monumental task to do, but it's really a small gesture. It
is.
And so you don't necessarily have to break your back or go out of your way to make these things happen.
Yeah.
I think that's besides the point.
No, definitely.
Because what this introduction to Konerko means to you versus what it means to him might be two totally different things.
Yeah.
You just had bruise with this guy.
Yeah.
And he feels like meeting him is going to change his life. You know what I mean? So like your relationship to PK is in a totally different context to what it will be for him.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, and you can't place your values on somebody else.
No.
Because then nothing ever gets done.
You have to figure out what's valuable between the two people that you're connecting though. So if it was a situation where I didn't think that Paul was if I knew that he just didn't like actors and he didn't like movies, then it's not going to be something that it's going to be a favor to me.
Right.
And that you shouldn't be making connections that are favors. They should add true value to both sides. And
sure.
I know Paul's an artistic guy. He loves music and he loves musicians and most athletes really have this like desire and fanhood for actors and musicians, So I'm thinking like, oh, this would be like, I'm pumped to meet this guy, And I was like thinking Paul would be pumped to meet him too, especially knowing that he's an actual fan of his. So it's creating those two things where both sides are getting something from it, whether it's just be awesome to meet him, you think they'd be great friends, or maybe they do business together or whatever. In this situation, I thought maybe they'd end up being friends, and that's what I thought in that situation.
Well, I mean, even if you look back to like some of your most significant relationships, and somebody sees the dynamic that you two have, and they're like, oh, how'd you guys meet? You vibe so well, and this happens with me and my wife all the time. My wife is cousins with my best friend from the Marine Corps' wife.
Okay.
And we met at their wedding.
Oh, wow.
Right. So our story goes back to, meeting through mutual people that we, have admiration for and care for, people that you like and trust, and in those circles, when they start to overlap, you start to notice that, everybody in those circles as they overlap have very similar qualities,
That's a good point. So when you're being the connector, and that brings out, I've never thought about it this way either. When you're being the connector, you really have to be trustworthy and you have to have a consistent reputation with this stuff. And if you break that. So like that was a trustworthy situation. The guards are down because it's two people that know two people that they both trust and like. So they're at the wedding for them, you know, and the guards are down. You're more apt to be able to start connecting on a personal level. And if you're just making an email introduction because you think that this guy might be good for the other, you know, and it didn't work out, then shoot, you might have thought wrong once. But now all of a sudden, and you're on the receiving end of this, okay, you're not being the one making the connection, but now you're on the receiving end of it, and you start getting an email once a month of this same person trying to connect you with somebody different all the time, and you start realizing that none of these people really are people that I feel like they should even be connected with me. You know, like what value am I going to be able to give them? And so a lot of there's this one guy that he'll keep doing these connections with me and stuff, and I keep being in the situation where I don't think that I can add value to these guys. I'll respond, but sometimes they don't respond to me, you know? And it's gotten to this point to now where I get his connections coming and I just don't trust him. Now I just don't trust his businesses and that kind of stuff. And they can burn a bridge if you use it in a way where you shouldn't be using it, because he's got a valuable platform where he just goes out and meets everybody and he creates these connections with everybody, but he meets on a very thin basis.
Surface level.
Yep. It's very surface level connections where I feel like he has the right intentions,
Right.
but he's not truly trying to get to know people. It's thinking about trying to connect people. So he's making business connections, getting their business card, and then trying to connect them with other people so he can be the connector.
Right. Name dropping.
Yeah. Big time. Big time.
Sure.
And that's a very thin, like, you need to stay away from that if you're going to try to be that connector.
Sure.
And that's just being genuine.
Right. Because there's knowing people and then there's having relationships.
Yeah.
And I make it a very conscious effort to connect people I have relationships with. I know a lot of people who do a lot of different things that could be beneficial to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I don't know almost to an intimate level what they represent and like how they're going to be beneficial to you, you know, just because he's an attorney doesn't mean he needs to be your attorney. You know what I'm saying? Just because I know a bunch of people in finance doesn't mean they're the people that need to be managing your money.
Yeah.
You know, however, you know, if you're trying to, you know, map out, you know, your financial future, I'll introduce you to my financial advisor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know and trust him, and, you know, we have a relationship. You know, that's a totally different context than, oh yeah, I know a guy.
Yeah.
You know,
I've got a question for you. So
Yeah.
do you think that anybody could be a connector, or do you think you have to have a sense that isn't teachable of people, of whether you can determine quickly if somebody's a great person or somebody's not so much a great person?
You have to have a good filter, I think. And I think that that's both innate and learned, depending on how much life you've lived.
Okay.
And how many people that you've deliberately gone out and pursued relationships with. And I think that's how you kind of develop your filter. You know, being a good connector is a lot like being a good leader. And you can make arguments as to whether leaders are made or born. In the same way that you could say that, you know, you're just naturally a people person or you're not.
Yeah.
And I would say that, you know, in my most comfortable self, I'm an introvert. I like to be by myself.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of work on myself to have this extrovert persona. And I've put myself in a position where I deal with people all day long on a mass level, and have become the conduit for a lot of connections through the gym as a coach. So when, you know, one member comes to me and says, I need, you know, who's your accountant? You know, I'm like, well, you know, go talk to Matt over here. You know, he runs 401ks. Oh, and guess what? He just so happens to come to our 6 a.m. class. You know, so by profession, and loving and my passion being a mentor and a coach, I've become a connector. But I've had to do a lot of work on myself to become effective at it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say there's an argument for both. Some people are just super, like, it just comes naturally.
Yeah.
Like everybody I think, to further the argument, the people that are just naturals, I think they're the people that everybody knows. I wouldn't say that they necessarily know everybody, but I'd say if you're a natural connector, everybody knows you.
Yeah.
And vice versa, if you're a learned connector, you know everybody and have a relationship with everybody, to take it one step further.
I like that. I think taking that, so the Chris Browning, so he was the actor. So taking that situation, I obviously didn't get to know him before I said that I'm going to try to connect you with Paul.
Right.
And I never told him that I'm going to connect you with Paul. I said I would like to.
Let's see
What I did was I reached out to Paul and I said, hey man, I met this awesome dude, and he's an actor. Told him all the stuff that he does. It's like, told him that he's a fan of his. It's like, next time he's in town, I'd love to connect you guys if you want to. And left it up to him first before telling him, because I didn't know him yet, but I trusted him. And that's where it's like the instinctual thing where you can say you make that connection, and you say, you think that when you meet him that these two people they'd hit it off because you have that instinctual relationship, or that, I guess, sense where you understand, or at least you believe that they're good peeps,
Well, I mean, if you think about the environment where you met Chris, a charity event,
another trustworthy thing,
right?
Yeah.
So now you have that common ground of trust where you both attach your name to the same cause, right? So you have a causal relationship that kind of brings down some barriers, and it's like, okay, so this guy believes in what I believe in, to a certain extent, and then you'll obviously, as you guys get to know each other, learn more and more and more about him, but you have at least that in common that gives you enough information to make even pitching PK worthwhile.
Yeah. And here's a key thing. So if you're making connections,
context is everything.
Context is everything. It is everything. And here's a key thing that if you're going to make connections with people, it's never make a just dry connection. Never take two people. And this is what that one guy was doing that kept like making it tough, because he's shooting an email connection with somebody, without giving you the option first of, do you want to meet this person?
Sure.
And I think it is good to meet everybody you can, but sometimes there's just not a point in that relationship, if it's coming all the time. Like if it's a dry connection from once a year, then sure, I'm always going to respond because I'm curious what he thinks that the good connection is there, and I want to get to know this person if he thinks that it's somebody I need to know. But when it's coming all the time and you never have a choice, because the emails are already connecting the two emails, now you've exchanged info. If you don't respond, you look like an ass. Yeah. And if you do, then there's nothing bad in meeting them, but at the same time, it's like putting two people in a situation where maybe they didn't want that person having their email.
Right. There has to be a purposeful intent.
Yeah. Well, I think you need to check in first too.
Well, I mean, let's bring it back to us, and and you being here today. I was at a networking event and I met Patty.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, you have a podcast? I know a guy who just started a podcast, and I think that you guys would have some, valuable insight for each other, And I was like, yeah, I'd love to meet that dude.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, cool. So she's a legitimate connector. She's like, I'll connect you too.
Yeah.
And, sent us a joint email, and then left it up to us.
Yep.
And I think that's the most genuine connection, because if we want to meet each other, we'll meet each other.
Yeah.
If not, it'll just die on the vine.
Exactly.
But when you force, when a connection is forced, it's super. And I've been in those situations too, where it's like super uncomfortable. You can't generate any conversation, and it's like, it may not be that you two can't help each other. It might it might just be it's not the right time.
Right.
And when you force it, it just makes things impossible, and you ruin something that could be awesome.
Exactly.
Later on.
Yep.
Because it's like, I know that dude, but we don't really have anything. We don't vibe.
Right.
And because it was under the wrong context.
Like her connection, she explained what we both did to each other. And this other guy that I've been talking about, his are, hey, Kyle, meet Jimmy, meet Kyle, let you guys take it from here. here's your LinkedIn links. So it leaves it up to us to go to their LinkedIn and check it out.
Yeah.
And doesn't explain any reason why you're connecting us. It's, I thought you two should get to know each
other. So that brings up a very good point. You have to vouch.
Yeah.
Like somebody has to.
I agree. Yeah.
So you have to vouch for both these people.
Yeah.
This is why you should meet. This is how I think you guys could help each other.
Yeah.
And if that element is left out, it's not going to go anywhere. Because the last thing I want to do is go meet it's like a blind date. The last thing I want to do is go meet a stranger and have to start digging for information.
Yeah.
I want to know that we have some common ground so that we can go ahead at the very least initiate conversation. Because even if our connection at dinner stopped at dinner the other night, with all those other great people that I met, at least it wouldn't have been awkward.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. At least I could say that I could leave that experience and say, what a great dude. He's got a great cause going on. And, maybe we'll cross paths later.
Yeah.
Instead of like, man, I don't know nothing about this dude. I don't know any of these people. And it's ultra weird, not like I don't know anything about them. You know what I mean? And like in a setting like that, the last thing you want to do is be asking probing questions. Like, so what do you do? And where are you from? And
you keep trying to create that connection.
Right. Yeah. Everything's forced at that point.
Yeah.
Trying to find common ground. Yeah. That's a tough place to be in.
Right.
And I think what makes things easier from a connector standpoint is putting yourself in situations that force you to grow so that, later on you actually have some shit to talk about. If you just lock yourself in a closet and play it safe the rest of your whole life, it makes it very difficult to establish common ground with anybody. If you haven't traveled, if, you haven't, tried, exotic foods, you're just beans and wieners. And, like not saying that you have to like aspire to live an extravagant lifestyle or anything like that, but, do some stuff that help stimulate some conversation of interest.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear. You can only talk about sitting on the couch watching TV for so long.
Yeah. Do things that you enjoy doing, and when you're meeting people, try to make a real connection. If you don't make a connection, you don't make a connection. You guys don't have anything in common. You're not friends. So you do different things, but put yourself in situations to where you can have things that you're passionate about. Don't just work all day every day. If you do work all day every day, then put something in there that you're experiencing in life and something outside of work as part of your job.
Right.
And
I mean, it's like when Jeff came to the gym the very first time and we connected. He walked into CrossFit with a very open mind from bodybuilding, and those are two polar opposite training modalities, especially in the recreational sense. And he was like, he came in with the intention of learning CrossFit, and that makes somebody extremely coachable and brings my guard down from the standpoint that like I want to teach him everything I know about CrossFit now. I don't want to just run him through workouts. Like I'll be a little more intentional in my coaching of Jeff because I want him to understand the process and facilitate his understanding. And now we have a relationship that has led us to this point because, there was that intent, it's like, and in that exchange of information and teaching him CrossFit, he opened up into a lot of the transition that he was looking to make away from corporate America and make fitness more of a mainstay in his life. And it's led us to this point because philosophically, as far as life is concerned, we share a lot of common ground. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times this dude's come to the gym, to drop something off or come scoop something up and, intended to be in the gym for 5 minutes, and then we end up talking for an hour and a half, and it's like, one of our interns was a fly on the wall as Jeff and I are sitting there talking, and he's like, you guys need to start a podcast.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of the catalyst. It's like, well, shit, that sounds like a great idea, and like, here we are, but like, if you're, not intentful in your establishment of relationships, then those relationships don't last, and nothing beautiful ever comes of those relationships. So you have to be genuine in connecting.
Keyword. Yep.
Awesome.
You know.
100%.
And then where can we support you, and what platforms, social media, websites? How can the community support you and what you're doing? And just speaking from my inside, I looked at his website and all this stuff, and I love the brand, Athletes brand. I've looked at the website. They're running campaigns, fundraisers, so to speak, is it?
Yeah, we raise money for causes with athletes.
Yeah, and it's a brand that you can really get behind, because you can tell it's genuine. They actually have a purpose. It's not just selling you a T-shirt with a logo that says something on it. It actually has purpose. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just my insight. And that, I mean, the website's beautiful. The clothing's gorgeous, man. It's just, how can we support you further?
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, no, we do monthly cause campaigns. We'll partner with a professional athlete to raise money for causes that they're passionate about. And we do that at athletesbrand.com. You can join our email list. We'll shoot you updates once a month whenever there's a cause campaign going. And that's my main venture, my main focus. I also have a podcast as well, successatssuccess.com. You can find that. It's called Success at Success. You can find it on iTunes. Trying to do it once a week. We're getting there. We've had guys like Lewis Howes, we were talking about earlier, Ashton Eaton, Kyle Park, Paul Konerko. Next week, or I guess coming up soon, is Dan O'Brien and Rob Ref Snyder. So we got some fun ones. And I'm on social media, every platform, but my main one is Instagram, at Kyle Mauch, KyleMauch. Same thing on Snapchat, same thing on Facebook, same thing on Twitter. So yeah, I mean, you can follow me there. I got my website, kylemauch.com, for any further info as well.
Perfect.
So, awesome, man.
Well, hey, man, thanks for joining us today. And for those of you listening in, thank you for allowing us to join you on your journey. And we really hope that you find value in the information we shared today. Go ahead and check us out on iTunes. Give us that 5-star review. And please, if there's anything that you want us to expand on, make sure that you reach out to us and leave us a comment.
And before we close, there's our last two questions.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, before I forget, Kyle, what's one thing that you do every day to feed yourself mentally, spiritually, physically? And what's one thing you do every day to fuel yourself mentally, spiritually, physically?
Fuel myself, honestly, it's stretching. It's the easiest thing, but it wakes me up. It makes me not feel old, and I'm sure you guys, well, maybe you can't. You guys are both crazy fit still. You might not have ever been out of shape, but I hit a point where I was out of shape and started losing my flexibility. But it wakes me up. It vibrates me. It gets me going. And drinking water. Today was like the first time I've had coffee in probably 6 months, but just had that feeling. But drinking water. The first one was stimulate yourself.
How you feed mentally. Yourself,
Yeah. Honestly, it's continuing to learn. And that's the only thing I can say I consistently do every day is I try to learn something new every day so that I have something to talk about, and you can keep having conversations and we go back to connecting and stuff with people and meeting people. If you don't have anything new to talk about, then your conversations aren't going to be very intelligent. They're not going to be very fun. So continue to keep your mind working and continue to keep your mind thinking by learning something new every day.
There you go. Awesome. Thanks for letting us join you on your journey, guys, and tune in next week for Feed Me, Fuel Me.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. We really hope you enjoyed this week's episode with our guest, Kyle Mauch, owner of Athletes Brand. If you want to connect with him, Athletes Brand, and us, please go to our show notes at feedmefuelme.com. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media, including Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at feedmefuelme. We would love to hear from each and every one of you and would love to hear your feedback. If you found this episode inspiring in any way, please rate, comment, share, and subscribe so we can continue on this journey together. Also, be sure to share it with your friends and family on social media, including Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, or any other social platforms that you use. We really appreciate you spending your time with us today and allowing us to join you on your journey. We would love to hear your feedback on this episode, as well as guests and topics for future episodes. To end this episode, we would love to leave you with a quote from Kyle Mauch. Your passion is the journey, and your purpose is the destination. Thank you again for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode.